Welcome to the August tour of my rooftop deck garden here in Chicago. We are 3 stories up and we are currently facing west. So this deck gets the full hot afternoon sun. Everything here is grown in containers on this 18 by 19 square foot space. And she is the most chaotic my garden has ever been. And this might be the most beautiful my garden has ever looked in August. So let me show you around my space. This is my attempt to give you as close to I can as a bird's eye view of my garden space. So again, this deck is only 18 by 19 square feet. I do think she comes across as a bit larger on video, but she is quite a tight space. There are 6 elevated beds up here, all made of cedar wood. There's one right in the center, and then the rest are around the perimeter of the deck. I also have a couple of very large grow bags and then some random pots scattered here and there. There's basically one square path where I can walk around this garden, and it does get overgrown fairly quickly if I don't keep up on it. But let's start as if we were coming out onto the deck from inside the house and look at what's growing in the center raised bed. The center raised bed, which you can't even really see anymore, which is always my garden goal, to cover my containers with plants, but this is the largest of the raised beds that I have. This is about 2 feet wide by 3 feet long, and it comes up to about 3 feet high, so I don't have to bend over at all when I garden these, which is fantastic. I have grown the same types of flowers in here ever since I've had the bed. I have grown in the center some type of zinnia. I've done giant Benary, I've done Oklahoma, but last year I found one of my favorite varieties, which is the Queenie series, and I stuck with that again for this year in the bed, and I'm really glad I did. I feel like they're even performing better this year than they did last year. Around the borders, I always have my Supertunia Vista Bubblegum. There's also a Supertunia Mini Vista Yellow. Now these have just started to recover from a budworm attack, so they aren't as full of color as they normally are, but they are on their way to rebounding. So let me take you in close and show you the 4 different Queenie varieties of zinnias I'm growing. So again, there are 4 different varieties of Queenie zinnias that I'm growing, and I got my seeds from Johnny Seed. Zinnias are really fast growers, so I start these inside just 4 weeks before last frost, which is usually around mid-May here, although it seemed like the spring took a longer time to warm up this year compared to previous years. But this is the Queenie Lime Orange. So it's mostly this really beautiful bright orange color, and then around the center, it has those lime green petals. Each of these, so these are all in the same plant. They'll be different sizes, they'll be slightly different forms. This one's more of a ball than this one, but I think they are all absolutely beautiful. So this is Queen Lime Orange. Right here is Queenie Lemon Peach. So this is the only one that has the word lemon in it, so far at least, but it's a really beautiful golden yellow. I feel like there's less of a color transition on this one compared to the lime, but I still really like it. It is slightly orange on the petals as you get near the center, but this color of yellow just makes me really happy. Let me pull this one down. Yeah, I think you can see here, still a little bit of orange on the petals, but the transition of color isn't as obvious compared to the other varieties. Right here we have Queen Lime with Blush. So it is lime on the outside of the petals and then blush pink in the center and towards the inside, and then they have this really beautiful pink center. It's hard to pick which one's my favorite, but this one is definitely very, very high on my list of favorite zinnia varieties. And the last one of the Queenie series I'm growing is the Queen Lime with Red. So this has, I would consider it more of a pink than a red, which is probably why I love it so much, but it's more like a vintagey pinky red towards the center of the petals, and then very, very lightly lime green around the outside. So these are definitely more pink than the Queen Lime with Blush. These are also one of my favorite ones. It's hard to choose between everything that is so beautiful, but those are the 4 Queenie zinnias that I'm growing, so you can see a little bit of the color differentiation in this shot. Now I do also have some rogue zinnias in here that I'm not sure how they got here. This one is just a completely yellow zinnia, and I don't remember having any seeds that were just plain yellow zinnias. I definitely don't remember planting any, but one has made its way into this bed, and I think the color goes well with the rest of the zinnias here. And I also think I might have accidentally planted a different variety, because this one looks very different than the Queenie Lime. There really isn't much lime at all on these petals, but there is some color variance. I think this might be the Aurora zinnia, because I did have some of those seeds. I did start them, and I have no idea where I planted them. So I think they also might have ended up in here. I'm really good at planting at the beginning, and then I start just throwing plants every which way. So turning left then, this is one of my favorite views of my bistro table. It's from Wayfair years ago. They still have a lot of similar ones on their website, but I also just threw a blue floral tablecloth on top of it to make it look a little bit extra special. This I just got from Amazon. I leave it out in the rain, even though I probably shouldn't, and then I do wash it when it gets too dirty. But I just think it looks really beautiful, and I love walking out of the door, and this is really my first view in the morning. I am also hiding a box of plant debris that I need to toss into my composter underneath the tablecloth. So let's make our way left around the center raised bed and over to this dahlia and this flower cart, which I always cover in beautiful flowers, but also use for storage, hidden by the flowers. This dahlia right here is in a 12-inch pot. It's one giant dahlia, and it is a fimbriata. I believe it's Princess Cactus dahlia. Unfortunately, none of the blooms are open right now. They are cut and come again, so I've been harvesting them for bouquets, but I know I have a photo or video of the flowers in bloom that I can insert here to show you how pretty she is. But this might be the current tallest dahlia in my garden. It's about my height, maybe a little taller, and I am 5'4" tall. But like I said, it's in one 12-inch pot, and everything up here, yes, this is actually the deck garden where everything is set up on irrigation, which is very exciting. So she gets watered, well, everything gets watered once in the morning. Now this flower cart, which you can't really see anymore, because again, the goal is to cover everything with plants, I've had for 3 years, I believe now, and I used to store pots, watering cans on the deck, and I would either trip over them or they didn't look very pretty just in a pile. So I got this cart, which is from Deer Park Ironworks. I don't know if they have this exact one anymore, but I know that that company also sells their carts on Amazon, Home Depot, Target, Walmart. So I'll link down below similar ones in case you want it. But I love how this turns out every year. So I started with growing morning glory on the roof a few years ago, but my morning glory barely ever flowered back here. So last year I switched to Thunbergia, or Black-Eyed Susan vine. I did coconut appeal last year, which has white flowers with black centers. But then when I saw there was a pink Thunbergia available, I had to get it. So this is Sunny Rose Sensation, and I got it, I think, from Select Seeds. I ordered it online as plants, so I did not start this from seed. There are 3 in a 12-inch pot, and I put in a very large tomato cage, about a 2 to 3 foot cage, that they are climbing up, and then they climb onto the roof. They are really good at finding their way on their own, but I did help train some of the vines. Now, this is not a Proven Winners brand of Thunbergia, and the coconut appeal last year was. I do notice some difference in growth. The Thunbergia from Proven Winners is much more dense of a leaf canopy. The Morning Glory that I grew a few years ago was very thin, and then this one's kind of in between. I'd also heard that these don't flower quite as much, but they seem to be flowering just as well as the coconut appeal that I have on the garage deck this year. So I haven't really noticed a difference in flowering between the 2 varieties this year. However, last year, I do feel like all of my Thunbergia bloomed more than they have this year. On top of the cart is a flower box that's about 2.5 feet long, and in it I have 1 of the Supertunia Vista bubblegum, and then 2 Silver Falls dichondra, which are a bit covered by the Supertunia. But I did the Silver Falls dichondra here last year, and I loved the way that, again, it covered everything that I have stored on this cart. I know you can't see it probably, but there are flower boxes, I have stakes, I have 1 watering can, 2 watering cans, because one of them is cat-shaped. I have extra pots, extra saucers, but you wouldn't know because all you can see are the flowers. There's also a pot down to the left of the flower cart, and I just planted that up the same way. So there's a Supertunia Vista bubblegum and more Silver Falls dichondra. But this is one of my favorite parts of the garden because it just looks so whimsical. To the left side of the center raised bed, right up against it, I have my herb garden. There is a 3-step shelving unit underneath that you can't really see, and then I have pots on the ground. Each of these pots on the stand in the middle are 8-inch terracotta. I could probably go larger for a lot of these herbs, but I'm working with limited space, so they get what they get. But I have a bunch of mint in here. Last year, I discovered Mountain Valley Growers, a website that had a bunch of flavors of mint, and I kind of went crazy with all the flavors. And then this year, I just grew more of the ones that I loved. So I have apple mint, I have strawberry mint, I have chocolate mint, I have banana mint, I have basil mint, I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting any, but since it's a bit harder to see the setup once the plants are full, I will post down below, because typically I'll have a planting up video of each section. So I have a video showing how I plant the cart. I have a video showing how I plant the herb garden. I'll link those down below just in case you want to see how I did it, if you want to try it next year, or if you are in the other hemisphere and your spring is going to be starting up here when we head into the cold weather. And then I also have pineapple sage here, which, other than the mints, so all of these I use for tea. I will sometimes use them fresh. Typically I'll dry them and then use them for tea throughout the winter. But these are my must-have herbs. I need all the flavored mints. I don't even have regular mint. I don't have spearmint, peppermint. I don't love those as much, but all of the flavored mints I love. And then pineapple sage just tastes like pineapple candy, and it's so, so delicious. Now I do have, I think, a few less pots up here since we now have room on the garage roof to put some more herbs, but this is probably the most amount of mint that I've grown, and I'm loving it. So coming past the table and the herb garden, you'll first walk into my bed of Gomphrena. Gomphrena has been one of my favorite plants ever since I started growing it, I think in 2019 or 2020. They just looked like something out of, well, I say a Dr. Seuss book, and then I realized that the ones that look like little fireworks are called Truffula Pink Gomphrena. So I think other people think that as well. Gomphrena I love to dry. It looks the exact same when you dry it as it does on the plant right now. And I will use dried flowers throughout the winter to make crafts so that I can still work with what's in my garden, even if my garden isn't awake. I always, for years, have talked about how much I love Gomphrena. It is what I would say was my lowest maintenance plant. I didn't really need to fertilize. It loved the heat. If I forgot to water before I had my irrigation set up, it didn't mind some drier soil. It really just thrived no matter what. But this year was different, and it made me a bit sad. I think it was the extended cold spring, because these really do love the heat. But I moved a bunch of them outside when I normally do, and it's not like we had a freeze, but it just didn't really warm up for a very long time. Some of my plants that I moved out died, and some of them finally started to grow after a little bit, but some of these I started from seed. I do that about 8 weeks before last frost because they are the slowest growing plants that I start from seed. And then some of them I got as starts from the plant center. So any that are the Truffula Pink Gomphrena that look more like fireworks than just a single ball, these I got from, I think, Home Depot. I just had to run out because my Gomphrena bed was making me sad. So those I got as plants, but then everything else that is just a full circle are the varieties that I started from seed. I have Carmine Pink here, which is probably my favorite because it's hot pink, and I love hot pink. I have Strawberry Fields, which I don't think I grew last year, and I really, really missed having the red in there, so I'm glad that I added that back in. I also have QIS Orange in the back there, and then to the right of those are the Audrey Purple Red. These are the most vibrant of the purples that I've tried. I've tried QIS Purple, that was a little bit lighter, but the Audrey Purple Red are very, very vibrant, and for my Gomphrena, I do love the more vibrant colors. But this is what's mostly growing in this bed. I did pop a pumpkin plant in, which we'll get to in just a second. Before I show you the pumpkin plant, to the left of my Gomphrena bed is one of the beds that I got from Epic Gardening that has the changing depths. And this I am attempting to make my natives bed. Last year I thought the Rudbeckia was going to take over. This year the milkweed has taken over. I think I have some prairie onion in there as well. I did put in some dill just for the caterpillars, but it's basically just a bed of milkweed right now. Oh, and one volunteer sunflower that I did not plant. But this is covered right now with flies and bees and wasps. I think I don't know if it's aphids, but there's definitely something on this plant that those insects are enjoying feeding upon. I actually had a really bad case of aphids on this in the spring, but I just let Mother Nature do what it does, and they were all eaten by ladybugs probably in like a week or two after I first saw the aphids. So this is my, I'm not really doing anything, let's see how these natives do in a container bed. I then also have 2 columnar apple trees. Each of these are in a 12-inch pot. So there is one right here. I don't remember the specific varieties. I got them from Stark Bros, but you need 2 different varieties for them to cross-pollinate. These are, I mean, they're taller than me. They might be close to 6 feet. Now the pot is about 12 inches tall, so the plant itself is probably around 5 feet, but they are beautiful, even if I don't have an apple on this one yet. They did not flower quite at the same time, so I did have to do some hand pollination. This one bloomed first, and then over here is the other columnar apple tree, and it was blooming. It started to bloom right as the first one was ending. So I did some hand pollination, and I do have an apple somewhere in here. There she is. So that is one apple. I honestly might be able to pick this right now. I don't know when to tell when these apples are ready, but I will keep an eye on that over the next few days. But these, so I have two more that are on the garage that I had last year. This is these two trees first year in the garden. And last year I had 3 apples. This year I have 1 on this one and a lot on one of them on the garage deck that I will do a separate tour of. So they are pretty productive, I'd say, in just their second year. So I think these columnar apple trees are a great way to have fruit trees in your very, very small garden. Now let's talk about the pumpkin plant. This is one. So this whole vine right here is one pumpkin plant. I have purposely grown pumpkins up here before, but they were miniature pumpkins, so the plant was not very large. This was, I think I got sent a trial pack from Burpee, and I have a hard time not planting things, even when I don't have space, so I was like, what's the worst that could happen if I tuck it into the corner of the Gomphrena bed? I still love it, even though it's taking up a lot of space. I just think having this vine growing, so it started to grow down, there's a cage in there, I think there's some random pots that are also propping it up, and then I also moved it up to wrap around into this bed so that I didn't step on it. But I love how this looks. I don't have any pumpkins yet that I can see, although sometimes they are hiding underneath the vines. So I hope that using this space was worth it to get a pumpkin, but even if I don't, I don't know. There's just something about this giant vine growing on my rooftop deck that makes me very happy. Now, as we turn to go behind the center raised bed, this is where I have, well, it's what I call my veggie patch. Every year I tell myself I'm going to grow more vegetables and fewer flowers, and somehow that never actually happens. There are 3 30-gallon grow bags here that I've had since 2019. I'll leave them outside. The one on the left has an indeterminate cherry tomato plant. The one on the right does as well. And the one in the center has some giant zinnias. It used to have poppies in it, and now that they've died back, I just have some giant zinnias in that grow bag. And then down in front are smaller 7-gallon grow bags that have pepper plants and a cucumber plant that I'm probably going to pull pretty soon here. Coming in here a bit closer on the tomatoes, I didn't mean for this to happen, but both the tomatoes I'm growing have yellow fruit. I need to probably prune these a bit soon. I don't think I've pruned these at all. I haven't removed any suckers. I feel like I've been busier this summer, so I have been doing less of the maintenance tasks, but these will start to grow over the edge, and then I won't be able to reach the tomatoes, and they'll fall down to the sidewalk, or they will start taking over the bed next to them. So I definitely need to prune these. I have a giant Benary wine zinnia. This is not fully open, but you can get an idea of the color there. These can get taller than me as well if you give them enough space. When I grew them in the center raised bed, that was too high off the ground, and they did not like the windy conditions up there. But down here, since the 30-gallon grow bag is a bit lower and they're right up against the wall, they definitely have more protection from the wind. In front of them are my pepper plants. These have definitely been further behind, both these and my tomatoes, because it took a while for the warm weather to get here, but I have some peppers there. I just harvested a couple cucumbers. That might be the end of the cucumber plant. And then down here, I have more peppers and some weeds that I really should pull, but I haven't. On the other side of this pathway, across from the vegetables, is this container, which had 3 dahlias in it, but they broke in the wind. There are 2 that have started to grow back from the tuber. Who knows if they'll flower in time for the season. So I just threw a bunch, maybe some might say too many, zinnia seeds in here. And they're growing. I think I did the compact variety so that they'll flower faster than the giant variety. So hopefully I get some flowers coming up there. And now we are about to enter chaos, where I don't know what I've planted, what else I've let grow, what's growing where, and a lot of things that should be vertical are horizontal. But it's gotten to the point where it's too far to really fix any of the issues. First, in front of the chaos bed, I do have one of my 2 raspberry plants. These are Heritage Red Raspberry. One of them is a propagation from the other, and they are in 16-inch diameter containers. It's just 1 plant per pot, and I leave them outside on the deck over winter, uncovered. They come back every year perfectly fine. I chop them all the way back in spring, and then I get a ton of raspberries later in the summer and fall. You can also see the bees are loving the flowers on there as well. Now let's talk about this bed that you probably can't even tell is a bed. There's a lot going on. I'm not even quite sure where to begin because some of these are raspberry branches. I do have carrots in there. I did have some Gomphrena, which is growing. We have horseweed, which I did not plant. There is strawflower. There's a dahlia over there in the back corner because this was the first year dahlias overwintered in my raised beds. That should not happen in Chicago. I wasn't planning for them to survive, and yet here they are. I think, what else do I have in here? Oh, there's 2 melon plants that are growing over the corners. There's clover. Yeah, this bed is a mess, but she's a pretty mess, so I don't mind. Although I should probably get in here and make sure that the cantaloupes that I have room to grow. Look, there is a cantaloupe. So the cantaloupe is planted here, but somehow the vine, probably because I didn't give enough space, cut all the way back over there, and we have a melon forming. Oh, I'm so excited. Back there is my tumbler composter, which I thought it would be a good idea to put the raspberry bush in front of so that you couldn't see the composter. However, that also means there is something very thorny right in front of the composter. So I have a box, the one that's covered by the tablecloth, that's full of the waste from the plants that I need to put in there. Luckily, the raspberry plant is on wheels, so it's easy to roll out and back in, but it's just not something I'm doing as often as I should be. Now let's move on to more chaos. Dahlias in this bed, just a mix of them. Don't know what they are. They're beautiful. That one right there behind the sunflower is the largest of any of the dahlias that I have. Don't know. I mean, even look at that one that's just starting to open up. So hand comparison, that is huge. I've never had dahlia flowers this large. I am going to try to save the tubers over the winter so I can grow them again next year, but I don't know what that one is. I have volunteer sunflowers, which of course are bigger and stronger than any of the sunflowers I planted. I have a bunch of dahlias so those behind are ones that overwintered as well. The tubers just started growing in the spring and I was shocked. But I don't even remember planting red ball dahlias in the first place, and yet here we are. So that is kind of what's over in this path in this bed. This is the path that I just cleared maybe a week ago, and she's already starting to get covered up again. But I will do some cleaning probably in the next week or so just to open that back up. But now let's go over to that last bed up against the corner. We have now made it over to the last bed here. This is full of more dahlias that I did not plant that came back. It's full of zinnias and it's full of watermelons. And yes, I do have some melons that I'm excited to show you. But first, let me show you the zinnias. So I have Cinderella series planted in here. I have Cinderella purple right there. I have, where's the Cinderella red? I know, here we go. That one's Cinderella red. And then I have Thumbelina zinnias kind of popped throughout. So if you see any small flowers like that one, those are the Thumbelina zinnias. And then in the front, I planted 3 watermelon plants. And so far, I have 2 fairly large melons. Now, I have been checking on this one down here. The melon plants are being held up by a laundry basket and a horizontal trellis and plant cages. This is the way life is in my garden, but it works. But this is one of the melons, one of the watermelons here. So this watermelon I have been observing every day when I came out and was seeing how fast it was growing. And then I just never looked up because if we come up here, there's a watermelon that has been growing in my hose reel. So it's no longer a hose rack because I needed space for the vines, but this one has just been growing here and I didn't even notice, and I felt bad for not noticing. So I do have 2 at least that I've seen. I'm sure there are more buried in these vines, but that's for me to find later. But that's everything that's growing. So that's how this rooftop deck garden is looking in August. In the next tour video, I will take you around the east-facing rooftop deck. She is a little bit more organized, but I absolutely love what I've been able to create in the middle of the city, just in containers. So let me know if you have any questions down below, and I will see you very soon in the next video.